Okay, hi everyone. I'm really happy to introduce you to my guest today, Tamara Golden, all the way from the US. So we met in a networking event and we hit it out right away. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her, but I just want to say, during this time, we're recording this during the pandemic time, and it is so amazing to see how we can still connect to one another. Obviously, we cannot see each other in person, but through the internet, and it's still wonderful to be able to, reach out and connect with people from different places of the world. So first of all, thank you for joining us, and welcome, Tamara.
Thank you, C. Very nice to be here.
So very quickly, let me just introduce my guest to everybody. So Tamara Golden is the owner, founder, and CEO of Journeywork Retreats, which I'm so excited to ask you a lot of questions about it because I love retreats. Side note. It's a full service retreat strategy and planning company operate across US and worldwide. And from do-it-yourself courses to done-for-you services. So it's kind of covered the whole range.
Yes.
And Journeywork Retreats supports coaches and transformation leaders in creating custom retreats that grow the brand, which I'm also excited about. So two hats. One is from a customer point of view, and the other one from a business owner point of view. I mean, I'm so excited to talk to you today because I love it. So Tamara has combined her 20 years experience in traveling, event planning, and coaching. So a very unique, I think it's unique combination of your personal experience, the background, but also the business that you are, running. So really happy to be able to chat with you today. So yay!
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So first of all, I often like to ask a little bit of people's background because it sometimes shows why they become who they are and how did they get there. And a lot of people find it very interesting and often inspiring, encouraging them to do sometimes something risky or sometimes just follow the dream. So I know you have 20 years experience, but how did you really get to create this business, right? Like the one that you're running now? You may have tons of different business before.
No. I actually came from a coaching background. So I worked for 20 years as a life and career coach. And I worked both in higher education and then I also had a private practice. And so I worked with graduate students. I worked with, all range of ages and across all different industries when I had the private coaching business as well. So I started out really in this place of, I've always been a person that loves to get people from point A to point B. That journey piece is very big for me, and really empower people to realize their dreams, to grow, to grow as individuals. And that's where I started, was in that what I call personal development space. Mm-hmm. I then entered the travel space, and I started off doing what you would normally think of. I had an offer to become an independent contractor for someone who owned a travel agency. And at that point, I was feeling a little burnt out from being in the coaching world for 20 years. And I was working already with international graduate students. So it might seem like a very strange thing to go from career coaching and life coaching to doing travel. But I had always been involved in things very international. So there wasn't such a big leap. And I started off doing what you think of traditional travel agents doing, booking honeymoons and booking family vacations. And it did, I love the creativity of creating an itinerary for people, but it didn't do anything for my heart space. It really didn't fill my soul. And when I finally came across retreats, it was like this, moment when the clouds open and the sun rays shine down. And it was absolutely the perfect marriage for me because it incorporates my passion around personal growth and personal development, and with all of the years of, organizational planning, logistics, trip planning that I did, with then the resources I have available to me as a licensed seller of travel. So it's absolutely the perfect match for me. And I really believe that all of my life experiences have brought me to this day to be doing exactly what I'm doing now. I really feel it's my calling in life.
Awesome. And I felt exactly the same So some people may not know. So at the moment, if you read my bio, will say author, speaker, and coach. But actually, I come from acting background. I also was a casting director for a long time. So sometimes you don't think it's relevant, but when you talk to people in a conversation, then you realize, oh, you did that. But then you realize everything has its place. So, your background, my background, completely different, but it all brought us to where we need to be. And also the quality, skills, and sometimes experience, and also people skills, or things like that, all blending together, because you need certain tools and you didn't even know you need it until that showed up. So I really love what you said about nothing is wasted, and your aha moment came and you just know this is right. So my next question is, I love retreat myself personally, because I love traveling. I like to take yourself from your like normal life to go somewhere pretty and enjoy like a nice surrounding. And plus, often retreat that I go to have a personal development angle or a spiritual retreat type of angle. So what kind of retreat, I know that things probably evolve over time, but what kind of retreat that you were running or are running that has that combination? So tell me how the retreat's like.
Absolutely. And see, the really important thing to understand is that I don't actually run any retreats.
Yeah.
So I partner with coaches and transformation leaders, wellness practitioners, artists, speakers. I partner with other entrepreneurs who want to take their clients off on retreat, and I help them really from soup to nuts. I mean, we start big picture around how they want to embed retreats into their long-term business growth strategy. How is it going to help them with their client retention? How is it going to help them generate more revenue? So talking about very, very big picture, before we start throwing the party, we got to figure out why we're throwing the party. And so we really strategize big picture, and then we start planning and the actual retreat itself, when it's going to be, where it's going to be, what it's going to look like, activities, excursions, meals, venue. We get into all of the details. And so I really do everything with them, from the strategy piece, how it's going to grow their business, to creating then and bringing to fruition the vision they have for that retreat, and making it an amazing high value experience. It's going to be an amazing experience for them as a facilitator, but also, of course, for their clients who are going to be coming with them.
But I guess, what I find is so different than other event planners, so to speak, is that because you have the coaching and personal development background, so you kind of know what they're doing and what is important. Like if you come from that space, you would say, well, you probably, if you're in a spiritual retreat, you probably don't want to run in the city of Milan, or something. I don't know. I'm just making it up. So that really, then you speak the language, right? I think that's what it is. If I want to run a retreat, I know you are the person to talk to, because you understand where I'm coming from, what will work for me, what are my risks, and we will have some common issues from a certain industry perspective, so you would kind of know it. So that's really amazing. And
that's my secret sauce. Yes. I consider that my secret sauce, because I'm not, there are travel planners. There are certainly travel planners, travel agents that can help with the travel aspect. Mm-hmm. There are retreat planners, event planners who could be there on site with you during the retreat. But I feel like I have a very, very unique perspective, because I do have that coaching piece. And I am a solo entrepreneur. So I understand, I'm very keen that this be something that helps my clients grow their business. There's the feel-good, deep work aspect of the retreat, which is absolutely an essential piece. That's usually why facilitators are drawn to wanting to do retreats. They want to do that deeper work with their clients, but I'm very clear it needs to be something that grows their business and grows them, quite honestly. And so it's that coaching piece that I bring, and the fact that I'm a solo entrepreneur who runs a business myself. I really bring those two pieces into the mix, and I feel like all of that together is my secret sauce.
Love it. And So now coming from slightly different angles. So for example, I know a lot of people in my community, like, solo entrepreneur, been coaching, teaching, speaking, writing for a while, but taking the next step or taking people to retreat, it can be quite scary because there would maybe financial commitment, and how do we do that? There's a lot of things that come around that. But then obviously it seems so juicy to take your people to a great place to do intensive workshops and enjoy the scenery. So I guess that would be a common question. So for a newbie, how do you help? I mean, does it have to be a certain level of, you have to have like 2,000 members if you want to do this? Like, how do you coach, say, someone who excited about this prospect but worried that it's too big a piece to chew?
Well, actually, I'm really glad you asked this. I don't think you even know this, but I actually offer courses for people who are interested in someday hosting retreats. So I actually have two different levels of courses. One, my really intro course is called Get Retreat Ready, and that's actually for entrepreneurs who are new to business. They're still just growing their business. So I walk them through very kind of, I'm kind of like that tough love, but I really tell them, look, here's what you need to have in place before you think about doing this. Because I'm not about setting people up for failure. I'm all about setting up for people for success. And so I really tell them, this is what you need to have in place before you start thinking about even hosting a retreat. So it's called Get Retreat Ready. And then the next level up from that is, of course, when people are ready to host their first retreat, but they want to understand the nuts and bolts that they really need to understand before they step into this place. Because the biggest thing I hear from people is, I don't know what I don't know. And that's what scares people. Once they understand the process, once they understand the pieces, and they understand what goes into picking a venue, what the legalities are, how you put it all together, how you map it out, and I create this little plug and play action plan for them, so they come out with everything already planned, their little timeline and planning actions in place. That makes it so much easier for them. It makes it easier for them in terms of understanding the logistics, but just sort of that emotional, psychological hurdle of now they understand what it all is going to look like. They know what to expect. And I think that takes a huge amount of fear off the table for people, and trepidation.
I love it because you kind of need to know how to walk before you can run. And when I was starting out, run workshop, seminar, and I always keep it very lean, as in no cost, just doing in my living room, speaking to 5, 10, 20 people. And then you start from there, and then eventually you can grow bigger. And there are a lot of people who want to come in strong, maybe rent a really fancy venue, but then only 5 people showed up, and that wouldn't work. And you get so discouraged and you decide to quit. And that's not helpful for the world either, because you may have very good things to offer, but just wasn't the right step. So I really like the 2-step approach to get ready and then hit it hard. So if I want to dig deeper, because there's so much in what you say that really interests me and I think helpful for other people who are listening. So first of all, like a couple of basics. So getting ready, what are the key things that you think that you cover and important to think about from the introduction level? That like you cover email lists and things like that, or what are your basics?
Yeah, the basics. So in my Get Retreat Ready course, for example, we talk about, and this is, the beauty of this is that getting retreat ready is the same pieces that you would be doing to grow your business anyway. Yeah. And so it's almost like a little mini business coaching course, if you will. It's around, making sure that you have identified your target audience, your target client, because you're going to waste so much time and money trying to advertise to people if you don't really have that honed in. So who your target audience is, your target client, how are you going to be advertising to them? Do you have a funnel set up? So do you have a way for people to find out about you? Do you have a way to actually step into working with you? And then how, thinking about what are the next steps? How do you engage them at an even deeper level? So having kind of this funnel approach, right? Mm-hmm. And this is nothing new. This is all part of a marketing plan. So do you have a marketing plan? Because if you're coming into business and you want to someday grow to a place where you're hosting retreats, you do have to have a certain clientele following you, and you've got to be bringing people in to work with you. And so really thinking through how you're doing that strategically. Are you working with a business coach, who's going to be keeping you accountable for growing your business and all the things you need to have in place to make that happen? So it's not it's not, brain surgery that we're doing here. It's really the same steps that you would be taking, that you should be taking in any case to grow your business.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to have a decent number of clients, and people ask me how many. That's such an it depends answer. But you do have to have a certain number of clients. You need to have people in the room, so you have to have been in operation for a little while and have some clients under your belt, and you need to have thought through kind of where you're going with your business and be serious about your business and be really wanting to grow. Because when you start doing retreats, it's almost by definition and by default, I've noticed, they're for the people who are really wanting to up level. It's for that person, that visionary entrepreneur who's like, yeah, I'm ready to take it to the next step. I'm serious. I'm going to grow my business. I really want to serve my clients. I really want to, knock this out of the park. So it's really some of those basic fundamentals that I cover and Get Retreat Ready. But I also talk about some things you need to have in place, and things you need to be thinking about before you plan your first retreat as well.
Excellent. It is so true. Like it talks about retreat, but it's really like a business course as well. I'm with you, and I think it is really helpful because, look, it's commitment in both ways. If the customer willing to spend 1 week with you, that's a big commitment, time and cost. So, and at the same time, like if you're committed to your business, you want to take people to retreat, you really got to, have enough experience and time and everything put in there. So it's all about commitment that, asking for a retreat is not like buying a $10 ebook. It's a lot more, because when you buy a ticket to a retreat, you're going to go. You're not going to leave the book at the shelf.
Yeah, and so I tell people, back to your question, the two fundamentals that you need. I mean, if you have nothing else, these are the two things that you need. You need to have some clients, and you need to have some teaching material. You need to have some educational content that you've put together, right? If you have nothing else, those are the two pieces that you need. And so the educational content, and I tell people, this is how a retreat is so different than a conference or a boot camp or a seminar, is that you're only going to teach or train 2 to 4 hours a day, tops. And some people get, that takes them aback, and I'm like, no. This is a retreat. So there needs to be educational content. Yes, there does, because otherwise it's a vacation. They're there to learn from you and learn from your wisdom as the facilitator. So yes, you are teaching or training, but the rest of the time you're bonding with the group. You're enjoying the destination. You're enjoying this beautiful venue that you've chosen, because that's part of the whole retreat experience that people are signing up for. And all of that bonding, by the way, I have a whole, my talk that I do a talk called The Business of Bonding, and that bonding that the clients are doing with you and they're doing with each other in the group, that is going to lead to a lot of increased revenue down the road. So.
We just hit something I must dig deeper, because I just had an aha moment, because I think in my head, I wasn't making a clear distinction. I almost think it's like not consciously, it's subconsciously, that I probably was imagining like a semi-conference in a pretty setting. But actually, no, retreat is not running a conference in a pretty setting. Retreat is a retreat. Now, what is so interesting and why such an aha for me is that, because actually, people who want to run a conference or want to run a retreat, sometimes the goal is the same. They may want to give the client a lot of, benefits and value. They want to make money and get closer to the client, whatever that is. That may be the same goal, but it's two completely different strategy and way of delivering that. So how do you tell people, you need to decide you're running a retreat or you're running a conference? If you're running a conference, probably you're not interested to plan with them, because that's not what you kind of do. So
yeah, they're very different. They're very different animals. And some people do both. I mean, so you think about people who have large, 300-person events for 3 days, and maybe it's a very low ticket price to get in, but then there's going to be an upsell at the end. The big difference is really the numbers, because with the retreat, it's very small. It's a very intimate group. I mean, the retreats that I normally am planning or helping to plan are anywhere from 8 to 14 people, and maybe at most 20. But once you get past 20, you really start to lose that intimacy. I mean, think about the number of people that you can really have around a large dining room table. all at once. You kind of start to lose the intimacy. It's not to say it can't happen. There are people who do retreats that are certainly more than 20, but it starts to take on a very different flavor, and you need to orchestrate that and navigate that very carefully. So it's about the intimacy, and the people have normally paid a higher price to be there. So these are already your VIP clients. So it's a great question, because the other larger event that you do could be a feeder into a coaching package, right? If you have an upsell, you might be upselling a group coaching package or maybe an individual coaching package. From there, you would then maybe upsell the retreat. This is why all of this has to be thought through and reverse engineered, so that you set yourself up to successfully fill your events and put them in front of people at a time and at a price point where it's an easy yes for them. And so all of that really requires some good strategic thinking, and that's part of what I work with my retreat facilitators. So very, very different in the nature of the event, the number of people, the cost to attend, the number of hours that you're sitting in most of those 3-day events, you're being talked to from stage, either by the host or various people that the host has, partnered with, collaborators. So it's a lot more being talked to. It's much more content rich than the opportunity to experience the other people in the room, and certainly the venue or the destination. How many of us have gone to a 3-day conference and never stepped foot outside of the hotel?
And drank too much coffee.
That's not what I'm about when it comes to retreats. Retreats are the anti-conference.
But the more you talk about it, I thought about it more. And a lot of people I work with, whether it's my client or my peers, are in the health and well-being industry, spiritual teachers and coaches. And actually, conference may not work for us, whether it's as in we running it versus or we participating in it, because conference is so intense with learning, and that's its place, that's its merit. But actually for me, it probably would suit me better to run retreat, because I would take the ladies to more inner journey, talk about the what matters to them, how we're going to harness that. We still do a bit of maybe goal setting or really doing things, but not as intense as in Tony Robbins.
Well, and think about this, because part of what makes it such a higher ticket item is the amount of access they have to you as a facilitator. So if you're in a room with 300 people, they're not going to get very much access to you. But what makes it a higher price point and really a VIP experience for someone to come on a retreat with you is that they get authentic, they get you unplugged and authentic, okay? When they're with you with several days on end and in a very, very small group. They get to understand how you think. They get all of your pearls of wisdom, from what you're teaching formally to, conversations around the dinner table. And that's what they're paying for, because they want that quality time, quality experience, and quality wisdom that you're there to impart over those several days, because you're going to save the best for those intimate small groups.
So that's such really opened my eyes on so many levels. And I have to say that, from the sound of things, it may suit someone like me. I will love it, but it may not suit some people. If they're really ultra introverted, they don't want that sort of access. As in, they may be okay to type out content in the background or pump out, a lot of written materials, but to be face to face and so intimate, it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody, and you also want to be very selective with the people that you're bringing along. So that's why it really tends to be clients that you've already worked with, because not only are they vetting you, but you're vetting them. I mean, do you want to be with them for several days on that? That's a very serious question for you to ask. So it's not necessarily for everyone, but a lot of people, what's interesting, I've noticed so many people have a calling to do this. And I use the word calling very purposely, because either they've been on retreat, or they know someone who's been on retreat, or they've been in circles where people have talked about being on retreat or leading retreats. And there's just something about it there's some seed that gets planted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it grows into a calling. The people who want to take their clients on retreat, they're very clear that this is something this is a non-negotiable. Like, they really want to do this. It feels very important to them, and it feels very, very sacred to them to be able to have that intimate time with a subset of their clients, and the clients view it as a very sacred time as well. An incredible opportunity to have that special time with you.
I feel the same. I feel a lot of breakthrough comes from those space that you allow yourself. I mean, you don't have to do 8 hours of learning and listening and talking. Sometimes you have a little bit of learning, but then it's about the space you allowed yourself to think or to not think at all, and to enjoy the place and talk with people and just switch off. And sometimes I personally get more breakthrough and new ideas after a meditation retreat, or just go to the nature for a few days, facilitated or not. For me, that brings very different value, and I really love retreat. That's why I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, there's three. I always tell people, and thank you for saying that, because I always, we're talking about basics. I should tell you what I tell people are the 3 fundamental components of a retreat. So the first I've talked about is educational content. There has to be some of that. The second is interaction with the destination and with the other members of the group. There has to be some of that. And the third element is the one that most people forget about, and it's the one you're not going to find in a conference, and that is downtime. Mm-hmm. Because the other thing that you want to allow your people is time to process, because you're probably taking them through some pretty, you're taking them through your best stuff, your deepest material. And it could be a healing retreat. It could be a spiritual retreat. I mean, there's different levels of depth that people go, right? But you've got to allow people time and space for rejuvenation, for relaxation, but also to process what they're learning. Because the other complaint you hear time and again, and I certainly have experienced it, is you come off these 3-day conferences that are 12 hours a day, and you're so fried and saturated that you come away and you literally don't put anything to use that you've just learned, because you don't have any time to assimilate it. And so I tell people, you've got to put in some downtime, and that downtime you can be asking people to journal. You can be asking them to do a meditation, a silent reflection. Maybe they get into a dyad and they do a deeper conversation with another member of the group. You can make it a structured downtime, if you will, but you're allowing them that time to assimilate and process.
Love it. And I
think
super
important.
Super important. I agree completely. So coming back to where we are now in life, as we're recording this, we're still in COVID-19 period. So many places still lockdown restriction. We cannot do big group events and stuff like that. So I find it interesting to the interview now, because personally, I think there will be huge uptake and huge appetite for in-person events, especially going to safe but beautiful places after. And a lot of people needed the retreat because it just took so much, on the mental capacity, and there's people going through really tough time as well. So I personally see there will be huge uptake later once we ease the restrictions. So what's your take on it, and what do you advise people to think about, like business owners who can't do anything in person for a while, but then once restrictions are lifted, maybe we're eager to do something. So what's your take and what's your advice?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, I actually this coming Tuesday, July 7th, I'm actually going to be offering a webinar with another event planner called Events, Where Do We Go From Here, to exactly open up this candid dialogue and conversation about where are we with in-person events. Because so many of us, let's forget about wanting to hug our friends and our relatives we haven't seen. So many of us, from a business standpoint, rely on in-person events to some extent, small or big, to generate clients and to generate revenue. So this is a real time of uncertainty and frustration for a lot of people, because they're wondering, when can I start planning? Where can I start planning? How does the planning look like? So we're actually going to be addressing all of that on July 7th and really starting that conversation very candidly. So to answer your question, there's a few things that people can be doing now and there's a few things that, we have to wait to do. Okay. So what I would say to you is to start the planning. The planning really needs to start now, because whether it's a small event like a retreat, or it's that big 300 person conference that, event that you want to do, here's something that everybody needs to hear loud and clear. All of these events that got canceled in 2020, when do you think they're going to be pushed to? 2021. So if you are thinking about doing a retreat or an event in 2021, we have a phrase here in the US, I don't know if it exists in Australia, but you better get on that like white on rice, because it's going to be the calendar for 2021 is going to be very full with your venues. And it brings up some opportunities. So I'm even encouraging people to think about starting locally. Start locally, especially if you're in a place that, different places are coming out of COVID-19 and still contending with COVID-19. And it's going to take them a while longer to come out. So everybody's local community is coming out of this at a different level. But you can start with doing some smaller events in person in your community and plan for those now, because a few months, a lot of venues have their fall wide open because their larger events have canceled. Mm-hmm. They are eager for your business. There is some silver lining in the negotiation power that you have right now to get really good pricing. I would put something on the books for the fall, and then, if you need to push it forward, you can. And certainly if you're thinking about planning something for 2021, you've really got to start that planning now. And you can still be doing virtual retreats, virtual events, virtual workshops, virtual seminars leading up to your in-person events, because you're still going to be building toward filling those someday. I mean, we are not going to be sitting at our homes forever. That much is clear. And you touched on a very good point, because once the floodgates open, once we start to ease from social distancing and we do start to get the green light on moving forward out and gathering, the retreats is a very safe place to start, because by definition, it's a small group, mm-hmm. right? But there's going to be a yearning for that in-person community and connection. And there's going to be a lot of need for people to do a lot of processing. Mm-hmm. for all that has come up over these past several months. I mean, people have dealt with challenges, fears, frustrations, vulnerabilities that they've never had to contend with. And so that I think that there's going to be a real need for retreats and a real craving for people to come together and do that kind of processing in a very safe place with other people.
Perfect. I think it's a perfect way to wrap up our interview today, because I think it's really hopeful. So it is really time to plan. And if you're listening and you think this is for you, that's your calling, I think it's clear that you should have a chat with Tamara, because she will help you to plan big and small, especially it's a different time. So maybe she will advise you to how to plan locally first, and, have a thorough check, and also chat and also see which level are you preparing for a retreat, or you ready to do one. So I really thoroughly enjoy our conversation. And for those who want to connect with Tamara directly, so the best place to find you is on...
Well, certainly you can find all of my contact information on my website, which is www.journeyworkretreats.com. So Journey, Journey, work, WORK, and then the word retreats, plural.com. And you can find my email on there, info@journeyworkretreats.com. So that's probably the easiest and fastest way to find me, because I am on email incessantly.
Fantastic. I will put all the details on this blog post / podcast detailed page, and also your social media handle as well. I'll put that in as well, so people can
find you
easily. So thank you so much for today. Wonderful, Jen. I'm eager to plan and think about retreat as well, because I would love to go or maybe run some in the next couple of years, because I really would love to get out there.
Yeah, I have to say, I just traveled to Santa Fe and Sedona last week, 2 places in the United States that are perfect places for retreats. And I was doing site inspections of several retreat venues, and it felt so good to get away and so good to be in these beautiful places that, full of nature, and it's wonderful. So I can't wait for us to get back to traveling, and I certainly can't wait for us to get back to in-person retreats. And I'd love to talk with anyone for whom this resonates and to start thinking through a plan for the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shi.